All right, today we're looking at bent laminations, where you glue strips of wood together over a bending form to get a really consistent curve for your furniture parts. Stick around. Well, there's three basic ways to get curved parts for your woodworking projects. You can do steam bending, you could cut a curve from thick piece of stock, or the technique we're looking at today is glued laminations. Now, the benefit with laminated boards that are basically thin strips, here we've got 4 5/32 strips of wood that have been glued together, is that it forms a really consistent curve. My result with steam bending has been a little bit different. If I'm making a rocking chair, for instance, that has armrests that are steam bent, I may need to make 3 or 4 armrests just to yield 2 good ones. Several issues with that. You need to start with air-dried lumber as opposed to kiln-dried lumber if you're going to steam bend. So there's lots of rules and things you have to follow if you're going to go that route. The other common method is just starting with thick, either 8-quarter or 10-quarter stock, and doing the joinery on the ends first, and then just cutting the curve out. And I think that's a really valid method if you happen to have that thick stock available. If you don't, consider glued laminations. It really gives you a consistent curve, and it's one that I've been experimenting with more lately, and I really like the process. So if you have curved armrests, rockers, or backrest slats to make for your furniture, consider glued laminations. We'll get into the technique. Prepare strips of lumber to make your lamination, and I like to work with stock that's a little bit thicker than 1/8 of an inch. I've had best luck using a drum sander for this just to avoid problems like snipe. You can certainly use a planer, just plan on making your boards extra long if you go that route. These little disposable glue rollers are just the perfect thing to apply the right amount of glue and do so very quickly. That way you'll have time to set everything in place and go ahead and center the strips on your bending form. From there, just add a backer, which is just a thin piece of plywood, some cleats on the end, and make sure to use packing tape on both the bending form and the backer board. You don't want either of these parts to become permanently attached to your workpiece. Add clamps one by one, starting at the center and working out towards the ends. If you elevate the form up on some cauls, that'll give you a little better access for the clamps. Sometimes I think I go a little bit crazy with the number of clamps I get on my bending form, but whatever works for you in your shop. Ultimately, you're looking for squeeze out. If you have good squeeze out at each layer, you know you're going to wind up with a good end result. Pull that backer board off, and the workpiece will just pop right off the packing tape. Well, this is what you can expect when your workpiece comes off of the bending form. We do have that nice consistent curve established now. Of course, there's a lot of glue to clean up. For that, we'll head to the joiner and establish one straight edge. From there, it'll be over to the table saw to look at a creative way to cut curved parts to width. So just try to hold the workpiece in good contact with the fence so you wind up with a square edge as you slowly pass that across the cutter head. And if you had good luck with your glue up, it should be a nearly invisible joint line. Now, when it comes to trimming the other edge at the table saw, you may be tempted to position the workpiece so the curve is up in the middle. The problem with that is as you pass it over the blade, the height of the workpiece continually changes relative to the blade. So it may just be easier to use feather boards and position it the other way around. The feather board clamped to the rip fence of the table saw is a really important feature just to make sure the board doesn't lift up. If you've got a second feather board, you can make use of that in the traditional way. All right, guys, thanks for sticking around. Hopefully you get a chance to do some glued laminations if your upcoming projects call for curved parts. We do appreciate you watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, take a minute and consider subscribing to the Thoughtful Woodworker channel. Also, if you have any questions about this topic, remember, there are no dumb questions here. Just drop me a line in the comment sections if you have something you've been wondering about how to create curved parts for your project. Hey, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one.